coming back then for Guadalcanal to get more Marines and go on to the next one, I began to develop stomach problems, and so there was a period, maybe 5 days or so, to get back to Guadalcanal. And I'd go to they had a pharmacy, a pharmacist mate, and he'd give me some aspirin pills or something, you know. But it began to get more and more painful. But I was throwing up in the building, you know,
boy.
And really suffering. We had a doctor aboard, and Buster somehow got to him, and said, you know, my mate is really need something. This is serious, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out they had me up in a little dispensary, I guess you'd call it. And the doctor recognized that I had an attack, or incipient attack of burst appendix, you know. This was somewhere around midnight, something like that. And so they took me up there, and part of the thing I remember is that I was on this table, and there was a bosun's mate that was holding me down. They gave me some kind of pain stuff, but I remember being very, very painful, and this bosun's mate was holding me down, and Buster they wouldn't let him in the room, the dispensary. He said I was yelling in there and screaming, and it took 3 hours for the operation. Doctor probably had to read his books about what to do about an appendix, you know. And but we're about a day out of Guadalcanal at that point. So then they kept me there, and when we got to Guadalcanal the next day, hoisted me over the side, sent me to a naval hospital on Guadalcanal. Well, Guadalcanal had just been recently secured. The Army had taken over from the Marines, and so the hospital was nothing but a couple of tents out in the jungle, you know. And but yeah, they hoisted me over the side, and Buster, I had 2 sea bags, and Buster stuffed both of them with my junk stuff. And so there I was, and I looked up the dates anticipating our movie, because it was a little hazy about exactly when it happened, but the ship's history, it would have been on April 3rd of 1944. They hoisted me over the side and put me in the naval hospital. They put me in, well, I guess you'd call it today intensive care for a couple of days in one end of the tent. And then they moved me into the open area where there were maybe 24 guys there for various reasons. And I had, as I said, Buster had packed 2 sea bags. I had one beside my bunk. And after a few days, I began to get a little bit more interested in life. I looked in the sea bag, and it didn't have any clothing in it. But what it did have, right on top, were all of my papers. My naval, probably the only record that existed of my existence, right there on the top of the sea bag. For some reason, it didn't get to the hospital. They didn't even know. I don't know whether they knew my name or what.
Wow.
But when I first saw that, I was surprised. But gradually, after a few days, it began to suggest some opportunities that I thought I was in control of my identity, you know. And I didn't exist except for these papers. Unfortunately, as I said, there was no clothing in the seat back, so I was in a pair of pajamas, cotton pajamas, and a pair of cardboard slippers, and somehow there was $5. I can't say why, but I do know that I came up with $5. Maybe it's $5 was stuffed in there. Anyway, I had $5. And after a few days, the guy next to me, I offered to buy a pair of dungarees from him for $3. No, I think it was $2. Yeah, that was $3 that left me. And so again, maybe I was probably in that field hospital maybe 7 days. I'm not sure exactly. But the thing is, I wanted to get back to the Epping Forest. And again, I had my identity paper. I hadn't been transferred anywhere. On the other hand, I didn't know what was going to happen. But I finally, on one day, I decided I was going to take matters in my own hand, and I left the hospital. I just walked out with my sea bag, in my pajamas and my dungarees and my cardboard slippers. And the nurse on duty, she's yelling at me. You know, where are you going? What are you doing? Get back. She's yelling for some orderlies to come, you know. Well, I was out the flap of this tent, and the jungle is only like 20 feet away, and I'm zipping off into the jungle, and pretty soon there's a bunch of guys looking for me, but, you know, it's thick, you could easily hide in there, and today, I don't know if I knew what I was doing or why. I knew why I was doing it. I wanted to get back to the ship. That was very simple.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, at that point I wasn't sure how I was going. I didn't know where the damn ship was, you know, or how I would do it. But I knew I had to do something. So I just squatted there in the jungle for an hour or two till the activity died down, and then I took off toward the hospital was maybe, I'm guessing, a mile from the coast, and I guess I knew that somehow. I headed toward the coast, and I ran into sort of a market of unused clothing. There was this thing out in the middle of the damn jungle where they had discarded clothes, shoes, outfits, and just about everything. And so I needed replacements, of course, for the pajamas. I found a pair of shoes, Army combat boots, and but none of them had shoelaces. None of them. All the shoelaces had been removed. So one of the other things I had in my knife was a knife. In the amphibious force, we were issued marine knives, and so in the jungle, I found some vines, and I stripped them with a knife, made shoelaces out of them, and I found a pair of coveralls, Air Force coveralls. No, we didn't have the Air Force then. It was the Army Air Corps. Yeah. But it was a kind of coveralls that mechanics wear. And so I got a pair of coveralls. Then I headed on to the shore station. In the Navy, there the place where you go on land, they call it a receiving ship. It's a Navy custom, you know, a bunch of tents in the jungle, but it's a receiving ship. And I needed a place at least to eat and sleep. And I went over there, and that looked like a very unsatisfactory place to spend any time. It was muddy, and a guy came out and said, "Don't go in there if you don't have to. There's nothing but insects and snakes." And one evening, coming back down into the camp area, I saw the Epping Forest come into the little harbor. Oh boy, you know. I grabbed my sea bag and dashed down to, there was a Air Corps tower there with a signal light flicker, you know, one of those lights that flicker on and off. And I went up in the tower and I said to this guy, "I'm trying to get back to this ship, and would you signal them and tell them Joe Meyer is here, you know?" And so he said, "What's the code name?" A code name? I didn't know the code name when I was on the ship, let alone now. He said, "Well, they won't answer if you don't have the code name." I said, "Well, just try. Tell them Joe Meyer, you know." Well, he flickered away for a while and nothing happened, nothing coming back from the ship. And finally he said, it's like 5 to 7. He said, "The movie starts in 5 minutes." Yeah, I got it. They're not going to answer, so well, there was nothing, I guess, that I could think of I could do. So I went back to the barracks and stepped the idea of being down there in the early morning hours, and maybe there'd be a boat come ashore or whatever. And I got down there early, but just as I get down there, the Epping Forest is steaming out. Oh. And I remember I was totally destitute. And I think I lost it actually for a while. I ran on the beach being a sand strip maybe 20 feet wide, jungle, and a small narrow strip. I must have run a mile till finally I just collapsed on the sand, you know. Finally I dragged myself back, and again, evening come down, and there's the Epping Forest come in. And I dashed down there, and this time they sent a boat ashore with some army officers that they were landing. And I was right there, and I jumped on the boat. The coxswain knew me. He said, "What the hell are you doing here?" They took me back to the ship. And the first thing I do, send me to the barber. I had hair down on my shoulders by then. And, but, you know, again, the strange thing, nobody, well, no officer ever asked me, what happened to you? How did you do it? It was nothing. It was just, they put me on back on watch. And, that was the last time that the Epping Forest came back to Finchhaven from or New Guinea. From then on, they went on to, with me aboard, went on to other adventures. Yeah. But I often think back, what if I'd missed them? What if they hadn't come back that one more time? And if they hadn't sent a small boat ashore, I mean, I was AWOL. I was away without leave. And I was a deserter, in effect. But what would have happened? What would have happened to me? You know,
how would your life have been different?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Wow.
It probably is the most un-Joseph W. Meyer-like thing I've ever done in my life.